Carl, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Gav.
Thanks for coming.
Good to be here.
Yes. I'm going to dive straight in with, I suppose, a tough question maybe. Just tell us a little bit, Carl, about your journey with homelessness.
I suppose my journey with homelessness, obviously, it didn't happen until late on in life for me. With homelessness came addiction first, and through the consequence of my action, then came homelessness. So I found myself homeless due to I couldn't stop taking drugs. I couldn't stop drinking. So eventually, I were living with my partner at the time, and eventually she couldn't take it no more, and Carl became homeless, which I thought would never happen to me. No matter what, I've got a massive family, a massive friendship network, but I think when that time came, and I realised that I've got nowhere now, I just thought, well, what's happened to me? I think, looking back, I could have called on many different people to maybe let me use the sofa or a spare room or whatnot. I just think I didn't want to, because I knew the damage what I'd done in life. I knew the damage what I'd done to people, and if I'm really honest, a bit of me didn't want to manipulate anybody else as well, because I knew how bad I was at that point.
Yeah.
I'd got really bad, and I know if somebody would have been kind enough to take me in, I'd have probably manipulated that situation. So there were part of me, there was still a part of me that didn't want that to happen.
Yeah. We'll come back to the addiction point, because I'm really fascinated as to what addiction feels like. But just sticking with homelessness, just walk us through, Carl. Talk us through the bit where you felt you hit rock bottom from the homelessness point of view. What did it look like? Where were you?
So, I think my first night homeless, actually street homeless, I'd gone into Leeds city centre, and I don't know why people do that, but I suppose it's just something what people do. Wandered around a few hours and whatnot, and then it was absolutely teeming it down. And I went and found a park just on the outskirts of Leeds city centre, and this park were open. It wasn't a park as such; it were a grass area and trees and a couple of benches in there. So I went in there and I found a tree to shelter under best I could. It was sort of on an embankment. I picture it in my mind now. And I've gone past it before and took a picture of it. I'll never forget it, but I took a picture and shown other people. That first night where I was. And I was laid there, rain coming down on me, totally alone, totally lost. And I just thought, what's happened to me? What have I become? And yeah, I think I was just totally lost in the world at that point. I didn't know what my next move were going to be. I didn't know where my next meal would be. And I didn't care about my next meal, to be fair. I actually didn't want to wake up. I thought, if I go to sleep, I don't want to wake up, because I can't do this no more. And that was the first night, and there were several nights like that.
What, in and around Leeds city centre?
Yeah, that's that same spot, to be fair. And then there was a point when my kids come and got me, and they were that worried that I wasn't going to survive, that I was going to die, that I was going to either kill myself or something bad was going to happen to me. They got me, and they actually pitched me up, which, it's so embarrassing, I'll be honest with you, and when I think about it. And at the time, I don't know about how I felt. Did I feel embarrassed at the time? I'm not sure, because I don't know if I felt anything at the time. I was just numb.
Yeah.
But they actually, the mum's street where me and her shared the house together when we were together years ago, there's a Matalan there, and there were a wall and a space between the wall and the actual building, and they got me there, and I got some cardboard boxes out, and I got laid in this cardboard box, and they brought me some food over and a blanket, and I was literally on the end of the mum's street where they were living with the mum and the mum's new partner. And I think back to the time now, first of all, how bad was it for my children to have to do that and to be that scared that the dad won't going to survive. But then, thinking about my ex-wife and her partner in that house, knowing that I were on Endit Street, because that can't be nice for them either. Although we aren't always seen eye to eye, I'm pretty sure, and I know for a fact she didn't want any of that for me.
No.
So yeah, it was just a really, really bleak time.
I mean, it sounds a silly question to ask in some ways, but what was your mental health like at this point? Like, what's going through your mind as you're laying in between a wall and Matalan at the end of, like you say, your ex-wife's street, sleeping out?
I just didn't want to wake up. Didn't want to wake up. There was no future. I couldn't see a future. I couldn't see a way out of where I was. I'd done that much damage in relationships and friendships. There were just no prospects at all. How could I get a job? I've got no roof over my head. How could I wash? What am I going to do next? I didn't know what to do. It were all new to me. So I just didn't have a clue what to do next.
Before we get to the recovery phase, Carl, where, glad to say that your life has gone on an upward trajectory since then, which is amazing. But just take us back. So for some context, so you mentioned earlier that before homelessness came addiction. Tell us about the start of that addiction and how addiction comes about, or how it came about for you.
Okay, that's fine. I never realised that I became addicted to drugs first in my mind, and I sort of knew once I took that first drug that I was going to be on a downward spiral. I knew that I was going to end up in gutter. I just knew it, and that was by experience of getting addicted to other things first in life. And since I came into recovery, I realised that addiction isn't about a drug, isn't about alcohol. Addiction to me can be anything at all. I can get addicted to anything, and I have got addicted to everything. I got addicted to working. Before drugs, got addicted to working. I got addicted to gym. I mean, I know I don't look like it now, but I was really fit at one point. I was massively overweight, and I trained every day, and I was addicted to it. I got addicted to gambling. So there were all these different times in my life when I was addicted to something, and then along came drugs and the drink. But I definitely knew that when the drugs and the drink came, I definitely knew that was going to be the one that got me. There was always consequences before, and even though I didn't realise the consequences, getting addicted to gym, I never realised until I came into recovery that how bad my life actually was by getting addicted to the gym. Basically, it took me away from doing everything else other than going to the gym.
So when you talk about being addicted to the gym, what does that look like?
It looks like going at the same time every single day, working the same machines, counting every single calorie. Everything was documented. Missing my children's plays at school and not being able to go on holiday because I had to go to that gym. I had to go at them times, and nothing could get me away from them times and them days. And looking back, it was just so unhealthy. And people were sort of saying to me at the time, and I wasn't realising it, they were saying it's not healthy what you're doing, and I thought, you don't understand, I'm getting fit. But looking back, it was so unhealthy. And then if you obviously look at the gambling addiction what I had, obviously I nearly lost my house twice with my then wife, and that is eventually why we parted, because my gambling addiction was too much for her to too much to bear, and rightly so. Nobody needs to be threatened with losing the house every week just because the husband's got a gambling addiction. It's not fair. Obviously at the time when we parted, I didn't see any of this. I didn't see anything until any of this until I came into recovery. Yeah.
So you were unconscious about the actions you were taking at the time, and
100%. I was 100%. Do you know what? I always just thought I was an idiot.
Yeah.
I just thought, and people would say to me, he's a lovely guy, is Carl. He's just stupid. You know,
Yeah.
because I'd constantly do the wrong actions, you know, and there were never no intent, no malice involved. And I'd go out of my way to help anybody in life. I really would. But I never realised I was so addicted to everything. It took over my life.
Yeah.
You know, the addicted to work, you know, work. And I couldn't get away from that fact. You know, giving all the customers my own personal telephone number. So when I'm at home, my phone's constantly going off.
Yeah.
And I you know, to put them two separate it was not a thing for me. My life just was about work.
Yeah.
Even though I had a wife and kids, you know.
You know what? When you talk about addiction in the way you do, I feel like for someone who hasn't had a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction, I still feel like you can relate a little bit because it's a mindset, isn't it? And when you talk about being addicted to anything, you know, I do question and being unconscious about it as well. I'm sure there's many millions of people out there who actually are either the same or not far off.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. I actually agree. And probably people aren't conscious of that fact. I think a lot of people aren't conscious of that fact.
Perhaps don't want to be conscious or don't want to face up to it.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think more the with drugs and alcohol, you can sort of see it more.
Yeah.
You know, if someone's going to work too much and they're addicted to work, that's very rarely becomes an issue in other people's minds. But if someone's taking copious amounts of drugs and drinking and they're doing all them wrong things, you know, that's obviously, it's seen. It's seen.
And there's a massive stigma to it, isn't there? So you'll hear people, and I won't be the first to say this, Carl, but who will go, for example, into Leeds city centre, they'll see someone who's homeless or suffering from addiction, and if not say out loud, think in their mind, oh, why don't they just quit?
Yeah.
Why don't they just get off drugs, get a job, and crack on with their life?
Yeah, definitely. And before I became addicted to drugs and became an alcoholic, I used to think exactly the same.
Really?
Exactly the same. So, you know, and because I had no understanding of what I've got, you know, I've got a disease of addiction, and it's something that has to be fought every single day. But I never knew it. I never knew. So obviously the public's perception of people that you've just talked about were exactly the same as my own. You know,
Really?
when I seen somebody in a I don't know, somebody homeless in a doorway in Leeds Centre, and you know, you can have a degree of empathy with that person, sympathy, whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, my mindset was, go work. What's up with you?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Until it became me, until it became my reality. And then I realised that it isn't as easy as what your mind tells you it is. It really isn't that easy at all. Because I had a choice when I took that first drug. I had a choice. But as soon as I took that first drug, that choice had been taken away. You know, I had to get drugs. I had to get drink. And I know it sounds crazy for people that don't understand. You know, people will say you always have a choice. But what I've learned is, until I got that under control, you know, there were no choice. I had to do it, and you know, my mind told me every minute of every day, I need it, and I couldn't stop. I just could not stop. And I absolutely hated what I was doing. I hated the chasing the drugs, chasing the drink. Hated it, and I wish it could have stopped at any minute of every day, but I could just never stop.
Yeah.
It would never leave my mind. So if you think about that person who's in Leeds City Centre who is homeless, and you know, they might be addicted or alcoholic, and you know, in my mind, I look at them now and think, what have they got? What do they actually have? You know, why wouldn't they go chasing drugs that they've always had?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they go and drinking? They're sat there not knowing what's going to happen to them.
Yeah.
And if they were feeling like I felt in my dark days, I can totally understand why they won't want to stop, or even if they do want to stop, how they're going to stop. You know?
Well, exactly, and it's the shame the self-esteem.
It's every feeling and emotion that you'll ever have, and you take drugs and you take drink to block all them feelings and emotions out.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to feel that stuff because you can't manage it, and there's too much going on inside your own mind to manage all that stuff. But if you can imagine somebody that maybe wasn't like me, maybe wasn't addicted or an alcoholic, if you can take somebody, maybe someone like yourself, and this is probably going to the extreme, but you make a bad business decision today, all of a sudden things go wrong at home, you lose your house, you lose your business, and it happens. It does happen, and this can happen to anybody. But if that were to happen to you and you were put in that doorway, you found yourself in that position. Because I often think as well, people that have been doing all right in life and all of a sudden they've lost everything, their mental health goes down that much that maybe they don't go to the families and ask for help. Maybe they push the wives, the husbands away.
Yeah.
They push them away because they then become a failure in their own mind.
Yeah.
So then they leave the family home themselves, and it does happen. I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
So
when you're talking about it, it feels to me very real. Like, I mean, there's that old saying, isn't there, that you're only 3 paychecks away from being homeless yourself or, from struggling.
Yeah.
But that's kind of true, isn't it? Like, it wouldn't take much for something in your life to go wrong. And the mental health consequences of that, the shame, the lack of self-esteem, the lack of purpose and direction, before, like you say, you have a drink, you might try some drugs, whatever it might be, or gamble, or, and it's a slippery slope, isn't it?
It is, and you find you do them things, that I have a program of AA now, and I see a lot of people in there that have had struggles in life, and then they started drinking, and then they drink more, and then they become an alcoholic, and they just can't stop, and it can happen so simply, just at a drop of an hat. It really can happen, and like I say, the 3 paychecks away, it's hard times out there now.
Yeah.
It's really hard for people. You see more people using food banks than ever at the moment.
Yeah.
And every time I go to a supermarket, I'm looking, prices are going up all the time. So how do you, if you lose your job, and all of a sudden you've got to rely on benefits, and you've got half the income what you had before, how do you sustain that as a person? What do you do? Yeah. And so it's inevitable your mental health's going to go down.
Yeah.
Of course it's going to do. Why wouldn't it?
Just take me back, Carl. So when you're in the grip of addiction, you mentioned earlier that your mind speaks of nothing but the drug or the drink. Just elaborate on that a little bit for someone who hasn't experienced addiction and the power of the mind in that circumstances. How does it feel?
I can only explain my own thoughts, feelings, mind. But when I was without drugs, my mind, I had something in my mind saying, "You have to get drugs. You have to get drugs at all costs. You have to get drugs," and it was like a voice talking to me, and it would not stop. It just wouldn't give in until I got drugs. And the second I got drugs in my hand, it were released from my mind. I didn't even take the drugs at that point. As soon as I've got hold of them in my hand, that voice stopped, and it was like, I can breathe again. I can breathe again. But on the negative side to that, as soon as you started taking that drug, you were then thinking about how you're going to get more because that's going to run out soon. So then voices were coming back saying, "Well, you've got this now. But how are you going to get more? You've just fought all day to get what you've got now.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do next?"
Yeah.
And that's when it leads you down to the different roads of, doing things what you don't want to do. And I feel a bit of a conflict of interest saying this, because I was brought up well and I know right from wrong. But my mind told me I had to get drugs no matter what.
Yeah.
My mind told me I had to get drink no matter what. And who I hurt in the process of that, at that point in my life, as bad as it sounds saying it now, it was of no consequence to me.
Yeah.
Because I had to get what I needed to stop that voice in my head telling me.
That must be incredibly painful, though. You know, looking back, I mean, perhaps at the time, like you say, you're not conscious, and in fact, you're so solely focused on one outcome that anything else is irrelevant.
It is one outcome.
Including your children,
yeah,
your
including
partner,
everything.
Anything.
Yeah. That feeling of needing to get that drug overtook every other feeling in my life. You know, and I've got 2 beautiful children who loved and adored me. I had a beautiful girlfriend at the time who loved and adored me. And you know, the only crime that them people committed was loving me. And I could not stop. I just could not stop. I couldn't stop for them. I couldn't stop for anybody. And people said to me since, you know, we tried to help you. And I know, and you know what, I'm eternally grateful for everyone that tried to help me. I really am. But until I were ready myself, you know, there was no way that anybody could help me.
What did it look like on a day-to-day basis when you were at your worst then? You taking drugs throughout the whole day?
Yeah. I'm here to be honest, and that's what it's got to be today. As much as I'm ashamed of what I did, I understand that I did it for a reason. It involved manipulating people. It involved stealing off people. It involved fighting with people. You know, the amount of anger what I had inside me was just horrendous. And that it was just the cycle every single day. You know, the fighting to get drugs, and I mean physically and mentally. You know, I think the worst part for me were the manipulating and stealing of people, because it wasn't how I was brought up. You know, that was never a path in my mind what was going to happen to me. So yeah, I think that was the worst part, and knowing that. No, I was going to say knowing that I was hurting my kids and my girlfriend in the process, but I didn't care.
No.
That's the brutal honesty.
Yeah.
I didn't care because I had to have what I have. And I know that might sound so bad, and it is so bad, but that was my reality.
Yeah. No, I mean, it must be so difficult for you to go back to that place. Does it feel difficult?
It does in a sense, but also it keeps me grounded now. You know, because I can have all that what I've just talked about, the mental torture, which that's what life was each day, each minute of every day. It was mental torture. I can have all that back today if I want. All I've got to do is go and buy some drink, buy some drugs, and that can all come back to me now. So I know that being honest about what I've done, where I've been, and I don't know, maybe trying to let others see my past and where I am now, and knowing that there is a better outcome if you want it.
Yeah.
But I can have all that, and I said this to somebody recently in a meeting. You know, someone who shared about all their despair and all the past, and I says I can have it, all that you've just had there. I can have it all myself if I go to the shop tonight and buy a drink, because that's where it takes me.
That's where it'd end up.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I
now know that I've got to be abstinent of all drink, all drugs. So when I first started taking drugs and drinking, like, it were recreational, you know, a bit on a weekend.
Yeah.
But, you know, weekend crept into Monday, and then Monday crept into have some on Wednesday, and then my weekend started earlier, and then before I knew it was every single day. And even at that point, even when it was every single day, I didn't sort of recognise I had a problem.
Were you functioning at that
point? I was functioning, I was working. You know, I was still doing things with the kids. Excuse me. But when I look back, I wasn't doing the right things with the kids. You know, I'd take my kids out for the day and post all this beautiful stuff on Facebook for the world to see how good of a dad I was. But what I didn't tell people was I had a can of lager in centre console car, while I was driving with them. You know, pretending that something was wrong with the car halfway along the journey, so I could go to the boot and, you know, do a line of cocaine.
So you'd stop the car, go around to the boot, and do a line of coke when your kids were in the back.
Yeah. And that was before it got bad.
Yeah.
That was before it got bad. So.
And at that point, you're still functioning and actually not that conscious that it's a huge problem.
No, that's the thing. I knew I was sort of taking a bit more, and I knew that I was doing things that I hadn't done before, i.e. drink driving, i.e. drug driving. I knew that, but I thought, I'm out for it doing with kids, you know, and everything's all right. I'm okay. And it wasn't until things got like really bad, and my kids saw some things that they should never. I mean, I should have never put them through that situation. Never mind all the other things what I put them through, and the stuff that they'd seen. But I think it wasn't until the back end when I realised that I actually did have a big problem.
Yeah, it's just like you say though. At that point, with your mindset and the addiction setting in, almost, isn't it? Is that the right way to put it?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, 100%. I mean, like I say, it was progressive.
Yeah,
you know, it was progressive. I now know if I were to do it today, it wouldn't be progressive. I'd go back to that total madness. I know that because I tried it.
Yeah.
I tried it, so I know that's why it would lead me today. That's why it's total abstinence now.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're very much progressive. It didn't happen. This didn't happen overnight.
No, I was going to ask that from the first time you took the drug to
ending up homeless.
Yeah.
Time scale for that, I'd probably say maybe about 3 years.
Yeah.
Maybe about 3 years. Maybe less. Maybe a little bit less. But it was very much our function, our working, our doing. I was doing a job which I loved and which I really enjoyed. I was with a partner who I really loved and I loved being with. I always had my kids, you know, quite regular weekends and whatnot. And it was very much a progressive thing for me. But yeah, when it did come strong, it came strong.
Yeah.
You know, the real chaos started.
And you had addiction in the family before as well, Carl?
Yeah.
That was your brother, did you say?
Yeah, so I think I've got an older brother. I've got lots of siblings, to be honest. I've got an older brother that's always been addicted to drugs and always been alcoholic. And I always thought, why can't you just stop?
Did you?
Yeah, I did. You know, for years I thought, why can't he just stop? I loved him as my older brother. I look up to him. And I just thought, why can't he just stop and, you know, just be normal? And he lost a lot through his addiction. He really did. It was like me. He always tried in life. Always tried and always made a success of certain things, but then lost it through his actions after that. You know, so we were doing all right at one point, and then, you know, I suppose it was progressive with him as well. I never knew at the time, and I didn't look at it like the way I do now. But yeah, I always thought, why can't you just stop? And now I realise, you could not stop.
It's a disease.
It's a disease.
Yeah.
It's a disease. And I used to think, before I knew what I know now, when people would say to me, addiction's a disease. What? Don't talk stupid. You know, my dad had cancer. That's a disease.
Yeah.
You know, addiction's not a disease. You can just choose not to do it.
Yeah.
Now I've learned more about the disease of addiction, and there's nothing that could make me stop.
There is no choice.
There was no choice.
No,
there was no choice.
You mentioned earlier, Carl, about being abstinent now, and every day is a battle. Were they the words you used? Every day is a battle in your mind.
No, you know what? No, I wouldn't say that so much. I wouldn't say that much right now. The battle is knowing how to live a different way. That's the battle. And me and you have talked plenty of times about my life and my thoughts and you know how I get through my day sometimes. I've got through my days in the past since I've come into recovery. And the battle now is doing the right actions throughout each day.
Yeah.
And that's not about drinking and taking drugs. That can be purely and simply getting up in the morning, doing my morning routine, what I do, and getting out the door, coming to work, and having the best successful day what I can. Now, if that day's not going as well as what I want it to, that can start sending my head the wrong way.
Yeah.
So then I've got to reevaluate what's going on. How am I feeling? If I know when I start feeling off, so I've got to reevaluate things. What's making me feel this way? What can I change? If I can't change nothing, then I've just got to accept that things are what they are right now.
Yeah.
Things will always be better. And this is all stuff I never knew to do before.
You know what it makes me feel when you say it is your awareness and your consciousness of what you're feeling and thinking.
100%.
Is so much different from where you might have been back then.
Yeah.
You're much more aware of how you feel.
Yeah, I am. I'm much more aware. Early recovery were a lot harder. Obviously, you've got the obsession to use, obsession to drink. That don't leave you for quite some time. And still, it can come on now. You know, some days now that I'd think to myself, "Oh, I'd love a pint."
Really?
Yeah, 100%. Because why wouldn't I? I'm a normal human being.
Yeah.
But that's all it is. It's a flitting thought. You know, it don't go no further than that today. But I've got the awareness today what I never had before in my entire life. And it isn't about drinking drugs today. It's about everything to do with my life. I know if I start acting out, I suppose, doing the wrong things, you know, I know that can take me to thoughts of taking drugs and drinking. That's where it'll lead me. So I've got to keep things under control. You know,
I suppose learning through recovery how to handle hard emotions.
Yep.
Is that a big part of it? Like difficult emotion? Because I feel like when times become tough and there's challenges which are coming for all of us.
Yep.
If you're not in one now, then it's round the corner.
Gonna come.
Yeah. Dealing with those things and making sure that doesn't send you back.
Yep.
Must be a challenge.
It is. It's about doing the right action every day. And like I say, we are all going to face challenges. We're all going to lose people. You know, as wives, husbands might leave us. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
As car might break down. You know, as kids might get poorly.
Yeah.
Things are going to happen in our lives, no matter who you are, no matter how much money you've got. Things are going to happen. And it's just purely about how you deal with everything what's put in front of you. Every situation what's put in front of you. You know, if you handle it in a right way, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
You know, it's not easy for us as addicts, alcoholics, and I know it's not easy for normal people. And I say normal people.
Well, when you said that, so do you still regard yourself as an addict?
100%, and I'll always be one.
Really?
I will always be one, but today I'm an addict in recovery.
Right.
Yeah, today I will never say I'm a recovered addict. I'll always say I'm in recovery, because I don't think you're ever going to be recovered. I think it's about continued action, you know, and I've seen it time and time again. If people start doing the wrong things, it does lead them to drink. It does lead them to take drugs.
I feel like there's a humbleness about the way that you approach life now, almost. You know, it feels like you say as well, let me ask you the question before I make an assumption. How far out do you look in your life now? How far out do you work to?
How far forward is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Not more than a few days.
Really?
Yeah, not more than a few days. We have a saying in recovery, just for today. I've gone a little bit past that in my own mind, because obviously I want a career, I want a good life, but I don't look past, if you know, beginning of the week. I don't look more than a week ahead. There's no point, you know, unless I've got like an holiday booked for the future.
Yeah.
That's obviously different. If I know something's coming up in the future, that's obviously different. But day-to-day living, it's just a week at a time for me, really.
Yeah. focus very much on the moment, but that keeps you very humble, doesn't it? I imagine as well, and that's what I was going to say earlier. Is I feel like your approach to life now and your perspective on life is very grounded and making sure you stay that way and humble to what life can throw at you.
Yeah, because I know one wrong turn and it can be game over for me, and it can be game over for everyone around me.
And how low you can actually go.
Yeah, definitely.
It's probably surprising.
It surprised me how low I went.
Yeah.
It very much surprised me. I didn't know what happened to me. And I don't want to go back to that. And I've got a good network of people around me today to help me make sure that doesn't happen. And, talking about the life comes up, life happens, there were a lot of big things happen for me last year. I was working 2 jobs. I was working at the Howard Foundation 1 day a week. I was doing my driving job 5 days a week. And it were a hard year, mentally and emotionally, to get through doing both them jobs. And I think to myself, well, why was it so hard? Because I used to work 7 days a week in the past,
Yeah.
But it wasn't, working 7 days a week before, wasn't in comparison to the 6 days a week I've worked this last year, because I never knew how to handle life before. So anything went, so to speak.
Yeah.
Whereas today, everything matters.
Yes.
That's the difference, and by anything went before, I mean, I didn't know how to sort of react and be, and, and this was before my addiction, my drug and alcohol addiction. Whereas now, I know that I have to act a certain way, if I'm driving my van, obviously you've got to stick to a speed limit, you've got laws to follow. When I come to work at the Howard Foundation, you can't be swearing.
Yeah.
You've got to choose your audience and what you say, and how you say things, and learning all that different things. And so it's 2 totally different jobs, that I've had to learn different ways to get through.
Yeah.
But then you get big things come up as well. So that was already an hard situation, and you get big things come up. Which I had quite a few last year. We've talked, about my friend Stephen, my best friend in the world, who went through recovery together, and he sadly killed himself. It's been nearly a year actually. And then bless him, he actually did it while I was on the phone to him. He hung himself on the phone, and I was miles away. I couldn't get back instantly like I wanted to. I wanted to run back and save him and all that stuff, and it just wasn't possible. So then I've got a choice to make, because I'll be honest with you, that was the biggest thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah.
My mum died when I was pretty young, and I thought I'd never get over that or through that even. But this what happened with Stephen. It was, hearing his words on the phone just before he sadly killed himself. That'll never leave me. So I had a decision to make at that moment. Do I continue doing what I'm doing, or do I go to the shop? Do I go to the shop? Do I buy some alcohol? I was working away. And luckily for me, I had enough in me to know that what the right decision was. And if I'm brutally honest, I didn't want to feel the way that Stephen felt when he killed himself. That moment when he killed himself is a moment I know very well myself. I've been in that spot 100 times before where I wanted that to be me. So I drove straight home the next morning, and I went straight to one of my meetings. I talked to people that I'm close to, and I kept talking to people I was close to for the coming weeks and months.
To deal with the emotions.
100%, yeah, because I need to tell people how I feel. I need to get out of my head.
Yeah.
And for years and years, I never dealt with emotions and feelings. I'm a big, strong Yorkshire lad. We don't do that.
Yeah.
We don't go crying in front of folk, and and in reality, it's all just rubbish.
Yeah.
It's all just rubbish, and learning to be able to be honest with people and tell somebody else how I feel, it's been a massive turnaround in my life.
Yeah.
So if I can, even when I'm at work, if I can turn around to my boss and say, do you know what, I'm not feeling 100% today, I'm a little bit off, I might just need a few minutes just to go compose myself. That wouldn't have happened before.
Yeah.
It would, and that's a guarantee. I'd have been sat there stewing in whatever I was stewing in before I had a little kick off and stormed out.
Yeah.
And that's the difference today.
Yeah. I mean, I should just say, like, God rest his soul, Stephen. Like, I met him a few times as well, and he was such a warm, funny, lovely guy, wasn't he?
He were just the best.
Clearly, that's one side, but there's a demon there as well, obviously.
Yep.
But bless him. Yeah, I mean the awareness of how you feel, going back to what we were talking about, and then being able to spot that and deal with it. I mean, when you talk, Carl, it makes me feel like when you're recovering from addiction, and in recovery, it's clearly really important and a huge skill you've learned.
Yep.
There's a part of me that feels like the general population would benefit from an ability to be aware, spot their own feelings.
Yeah, I do.
Talk about it. Like, these are sort of, in my mind, high-level emotional intelligence skills.
Yeah, definitely. We say, I'm in a fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and what we say is, it's you normal people that we feel sorry for because you haven't got a program to work with.
Yeah.
And that was me for years, but without the drink and the drug. Before I started my drug and alcohol addiction, I didn't know how to handle life. When I came into recovery, I thought I was just short-tempered, and I realised that I'm full of anxiety. I never realised this. And for years and years, I'd kick off at drop of a hat, not realising that because I were in an anxiety state. I didn't know it.
Yeah.
And then I came into recovery and I learned about, no, it's not that. So what we need to do is we need to put things in place so when this happens. So I just counting to 10, just stopping and counting to 10. And I never learnt this in life. And like today, I look back and think, wow, my life would have been so much different today if I'd have learnt this stuff.
I mean, you brushed over it slightly earlier, but I feel like you also suffered a fair bit of trauma, Carl, in your life as you were young. I mean, you talk about having been brought up the right way and having a lot of siblings, but then you just brushed over very briefly the fact that your mum died when you were young. Your elder brother who you looked up to was suffering from addiction. They're not easy things to deal with.
No, they're not, but people do deal with them.
Yeah.
People deal with them every single day, so I'm not different to anybody else.
Yeah.
The fact that my mum died when I was younger, and she was my idol, my mum. She was my rock. She really was, and I would have done anything that she told me to do or asked me to do. But this is life. That's life, and I don't think that we can. This is my own personal opinion. I don't want to attribute anything what I've become on my mum dying or my brother being how he was.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not an expert in anything. I'm just me.
Yeah.
And I've only got my own thoughts and opinions. Yeah. But, I don't think my life would have turned out any differently than what it has done, even if my mum would have been alive. I'm still not wired up right.
Yeah.
I'm still an addict, and I would have always still been an addict, and I would have still always come to this point at some time.
That's really interesting you say that. I feel like it's a position of extreme responsibility and accountability for your own actions and yourself and what you do in your own life.
Yeah, 100%, and I need to be today. I need to be, because if I'm not accountable to myself, what makes me accountable to anybody else?
Yeah.
You've got to be accountable to yourself first.
How do you help someone in addiction, Carl? If there's someone in your family, wider circle, someone you know with addiction, how do you help?
I would love to say, here's a crystal ball, and I don't know. I might be being stupid, but I'd love to turn myself into a magician. Do you know what I always wanted? I would go to doctors time and time again and saying, please help me, and I wanted them to give me a tablet.
Did you go to the doctors a lot?
I did.
Did you?
I did.
Through that 3 years?
Through lots of years previously as well. Please help me. Please stop these thoughts and stuff in my head. And I wanted a tablet, and I wanted to walk out of there and everything be better. And then it's not like that.
Yeah.
What I've learned is that I can't help anybody. I'm not no Superman. I can share with people my experience, where I've been and where I am now. And sometimes I hope it clicks inside someone's head, because it can. But until that person is ready, I truly believe that I can't help them.
Yeah.
I can't help them. And, we talk about rock bottoms in recovery, I say it's that moment of clarity, what just comes in your mind and just says, I can't do this no more. And it was that moment what I needed to be able to change my life and stop doing what I was doing. And I think until that moment comes for whatever individual it is, there's nothing I can do. And I say that, I don't say it flippantly at all, and I've always been the one to help people my entire life. I have always gone above and beyond to help people. That's the people pleaser side of me, which I've got to keep under control today. Because that does you damage.
Yeah.
You're going out your way to help others rather than being there for yourself first.
At the cost to yourself.
100%. Yeah. And that's what I've always done. Looking for that validation from other people, because I know I don't feel good about myself. Yeah. And today it's not about that. And I'm aware today that if I start going out my way to help someone too much, it's because I'm trying to change the way I feel. But that's in a negative way.
Yes.
Because if you look at it like this, if I'm going to help somebody to make myself feel better, I'm then going to resent that person that I've just helped, because if it's cost me something, whether that's time or money or whatever it's cost me, I'm then going to resent that person. But I'm resenting them for no reason, because I've done it to myself.
Yeah.
It's madness. If you think about it logically, it sounds absolutely mad.
I sort of feel like I can relate and empathise to some degree, because the human mind is an incredibly powerful, somewhat scary instrument. Yeah. Isn't it?
It's too complex for me to think about.
Yeah, and when you talk about addiction, and going right back to the start of the conversation about, what you did for me there and the way you explained it is, like you say, society looks at, you think of drugs and alcohol addiction.
Yep.
But you added in there gambling addiction. We then talked about the gym addiction. We also touched on work addiction.
Yep.
And you think about mobile, it's a silly sort of example in a way, but mobile phone addiction.
Yep.
And the amount of times you feel yourself checking your pocket with your hand.
Yep.
Or going to check your phone, even though the phone hasn't gone off.
Yep.
There's no notification sound, yet you've gone over and checked it. How far off is that mind, the track you down there? Yep. Is that not a similar thing?
It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. I was sort of smiling to myself then when you're on about the mobile phone, because we all have them today, all have them, and if you look, and I've done it, and probably you have yourself. You're going out for a meal with family or friends, and let's say there's 4 of you there, all 4 of you on your phones. It's just constant, and it can take over your life. It can take, and then that affects other things.
Yes,
it affects other things, and anything that affects something else is negative.
Yeah.
So it's about keeping things under control, knowing when things are too much, knowing when you're doing an action that's not positive for you.
I think what I think we're both trying to get to as well is to close the gap of perception between what someone of the public may think of a drug addict.
Yep.
You think of an addict, forget the drug bit, you think of an addict and you think of someone, the imagery in your mind that probably comes up for a lot of people is someone sat on the street with a needle in their arm.
100%.
Addict. Well, actually, how different am I from that person is the point.
Yeah.
How different, if you feel like you can walk past that person and that's not me, I couldn't ever do that. I don't have that darkness inside me. I feel like that's a dangerous place to be.
I think it is. I think if people keep it real in their mind that could be them.
How different are we?
Not much, really.
Arguably not much.
Not much, really.
There's a fine line between us, in which case, it makes no sense whatsoever, nor is it morally right or fair to be demonising anyone
Yeah.
who's in that position.
No, it's not. It's not. But I understand it. I totally do understand it. If I see somebody committing crime to get drugs, although that's been me, I still think it's wrong what they're doing. But I understand why they're doing it. I totally get it. So for people that don't understand addiction and have never been addicted to anything, never had to steal to get drink or drugs, of course they're going to see it as, it's totally wrong.
Yeah.
I think it's wrong now.
Yeah, it is wrong, isn't it?
It is wrong. It's totally
wrong
wrong
in accordance with the law, of course, as to steal, etc. But a layer deeper than that.
A layer deeper than that is, that person is fighting for survival. And please don't think that I'm saying for any second that, if you see someone stealing or doing the wrong thing, you should be like, oh, poor them.
No, of course.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, from my own personal experience, I never wanted to steal a thing.
Yeah.
I never wanted to be the person who were. Drugs and drink overtook my life. And that it just become my reality.
Can I ask you, Carl, you mentioned earlier about recovery, and I think you talked about, or you mentioned the word relapse.
Yep.
What's that journey look like of recovery? So you've hit rock bottom and you're on your way up now.
Yep.
But relapsing, so 2 steps forward, 1 step back. What does that look like?
It were a shocking experience for myself. And I look back at why I relapsed. So I started off in recovery. I went into a daycare setting. I learnt a lot about myself. And I was there for about 12 months and relapsed pretty much straight after coming out of there.
After 12 months clean?
Yeah.
Relapse?
So I pretty much, within a couple of days. And I think to myself, well, what happened to me? Like, why? I wasn't doing things right. From day one, they talk about you've got to surrender to get recovery. And I don't think I'd fully surrendered. I wanted to go back to the Carl who went out on the weekend, had a couple of drinks with his mates, had a bit of cocaine here and there. I didn't want to go back to that rock bottom place of, laid under a tree with no life.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to them sort of good times, not realising that you can't do that. It's you've got to stop everything. So I don't think I didn't give it my all. I didn't fully surrender to the program. But then I relapsed, and I spent another probably 12 months or more, trying a little bit here and there. I mean, you knew me back in the day.
Yeah.
Trying a little bit, but not being able to do it, and just sort of waiting for that moment to come, which had come before. That moment of, I can't do this no more. I waited for that moment to come, and it just wasn't coming. So you're fighting that battle in your mind. You've now had some recovery inside you, so you know that what you're doing now is wrong.
Yeah.
Every action what you're taking now, is wrong. You've got the experience now. You've learnt some stuff.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, you can't be going out and stealing. It's wrong. So it was just so mentally hard again, because I knew better this time. I sort of knew better, but I'd not fully surrendered to the fact that I could never drink and take drugs again.
Yeah.
So when I came into recovery this time, and I knew, and I know the day it happened, the moment it happened, I were sat on the back of a bus, and I just thought, I can't do this no more. I'd had the horrendous night before, police involved and all other stupid things, and I just thought, I can't do this no more, and that was my moment. And
so you just sat on the back of a bus travelling somewhere, and you had a moment?
I had a moment, yeah. I just had a moment of clarity in my head, and it just basically said, I can't do this no more.
Yeah.
And I've not drunk or took drugs from that day.
Yeah.
I knew what were good for me. I know going to the meetings what I go to and being around the people that are there to support me was the way forward. And I think I asked myself, what didn't I do right last time? I remember asking myself, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong before? Why did I mess up? And the truth is, I did everything wrong.
Really?
Yeah. So I had to change everything. I had to change my mindset totally. Yeah. So far I'm being successful in what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. That's a great place to move on to then now. So what does your life look like now, Cal?
I'm happy. You know, I've just had the most amazing week in my mind. And that I've got to be careful of that too. You know, and it might sound stupid to people, but I went to a meeting last night and shared about ego. You know,
Yeah, when things are going good.
My ego's going through a roof this week because I've come into a new position and it's been a brilliant week and I've said some profound things. You know,
Yeah.
You know, this is what I said in my meeting last night, and I've got to be careful of that because, you know, when you start thinking you're doing better than what you are,
believe in your own hype almost.
Yeah, that can send you back. So I had to grasp myself up at a meeting last night and just say, you know, I've been a bit, been a bit too much this week.
I'm getting a bit big time this week.
Yeah. I was thinking I were running charity this week. What does my life look like now? Do you know what? It's miles away from what it was. And I was going to say I didn't want to be sat here today, as in I didn't want to be here alive today. That's not the truth. The truth is, I didn't know how to live before. I wanted to die on a daily basis, and that is the truth. Because I didn't know any other way to live than doing what I was doing. Today I do. Today I'm really happy to be sat here talking to you, wanting to be here, wanting to be alive, wanting to be successful.
Yeah.
And success for me is not measured. It's not measured in money.
No, well, what does it look like for you?
It's going on with a smile on my face. It's going on and being happy.
Yeah.
It's having my children not worrying about me. You know, when I was in my addiction, the height of my addiction, my daughter was phoning me at least 200 times a day.
Really?
Really. She was trying to get to my house every second of every day to make sure that I was okay, that I were alive. You know, I think I phoned her yesterday, but previous to that, I've not spoken to her in the previous 2 days. And that's major. You know, because that girl's mental health suffered a lot in my addiction. And the fact that she now doesn't feel a need to have to do that no more, doesn't have to ring me up every... And she said to me recently, I was taking her home, and she looked at me, and she said, I'm really happy, Dad. Get emotional thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, you love? I said, that's good. Why? She went, because you're all right. She says, you're doing really well. And she said, I don't have to worry about you no more. I thought, oh my God, it's amazing. Yeah, it is. It's amazing knowing that my children don't have to worry about me. My wider family doesn't have to worry about me. I don't have to manipulate my family to get money out of them no more.
Yeah.
You know, it was horrible. It was a horrible existence, and I don't have to do that no more.
Yeah.
And I love that fact. You know, and I hear people's aspirations in life, and that, you know, they want the nice car and a nice house. Who don't? You know, who doesn't? But I'm not chasing any of that. I'm chasing just being all right.
Yeah.
I've got there. I'm more than all right.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm really good. And every single day I've gone home this week, I've gone home happy, tired. Really, it's been a tiring week.
Yeah.
But I've gone home really good.
It's amazing. Well, you know what we think of you, Carl. No, well, I've got to be careful now not to play to this ego, haven't I?
You have.
But you know what we think of you. And just for everyone who didn't sort of pick that up, the context. So, Carl, this week, on Tuesday, you've started a full-time role at the Howard Foundation.
Yeah.
Which is
so I'll
brilliant.
just pick up on that briefly. So I know I talked recently about not having too much of a long-term plan, but last year I set myself a goal. I've been involved with this charity for quite a while now, both getting support from the charity and in a professional level. But I believe in the charity that much, and I knew it's where I wanted to be, because somewhere inside me, you know, the take away the addiction and all that. Through my life, I've been a grafter, you know, and I've always known that putting in hard days working and coming out of a wage at end of the week, I don't know. I might have been a bit old-fashioned. I don't know. But just look at my granddad, and he always worked hard, and my dad and my mum, we all family did, and I believe in it, and I believe it's really, really good for your mental health and stuff.
Work, you mean?
Work,
working,
working a purpose. It's So, and I believed in the charity. I believe what we do, and I wanted this to be a future, and I think that's the only thing that I've looked at long term.
Yeah.
Since I've come in recovery, working here, and I set my stall out 1 day a week, while I was doing my driving job 5 days, hoping that after a certain amount of time I'd be ready to come here full time, that the charity would be able to afford to pay me even, and I know that the charity's fundraised from different companies to get me wages. I'm so eternally grateful for that.
Yeah.
Because this is my dream, to see people's faces when we've got them a job, to see people doing better in their life. I've just been to see a client today who started work this week, and the joy on his face, and he's so grateful, he's so happy, and his wife were there, and his 2 kids were there, and it's just so lovely to see that, with a little bit of help, people can turn their lives around.
Yeah.
So
me and you have had so many conversations, Carl, over the last 2 or 3 years, I bet now.
Yeah, we have.
And, I knew personally a fair bit of your story, but even after speaking to you today, I feel so pumped about the work we're doing in the Howard Foundation, even more so than ever.
Definitely.
Because supporting people who have been down that journey, and you've been there, you know what this looks and feels like. You've got the lived experience of addiction, homelessness, mental health, trauma, and trying to get back on your feet. You are living proof that it can be done. Yeah,
it can. It really can. But you know what? I say to people, last year was, I'm 45 now, and I think last year was the hardest year of my life, but also the best.
Yeah.
I won last year. Regardless of, all the turmoils, what happened along the way, I won. I got through the year clean and sober, and I've achieved what I achieved, what I wanted to set out work-wise. I'm now working for the Howard Foundation full-time, which is what I wanted to do, which is where my dream lied.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm not going to be going buying no new cars anytime soon, or getting these expensive houses. I'm paying debts back from years ago, and I'm good. I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. I get paid at the end of the month, and there's very little left, but I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
Because I know after a certain amount of time that'll be gone, and I'll be okay. And I know that I'll sort that out myself over time.
Yeah.
And there's not more satisfying than that. I didn't pay bills before. I think my sofa about 2 foot higher because of all the bills under it.
Really?
I wouldn't have even opened a bill before.
No.
I'd been that scared to open a bill before.
Yeah.
Now when a bill comes through the door, I open it. It might be something from my past, but I deal with it today. I can make a phone call, and I can put things in place. If I can't pay for it right now, I'll put things in place to be able to move forward in life.
Yeah.
Life is just so much more different, but that this is where I want to be.
Yeah. Well, long may it continue.
Yeah, definitely.
Well done, Cal. You've done an amazing journey, and I'm just, we're all so proud of you and what you've achieved, and we'll be with you, all of us.
Thank you.
Along the way.
But that's brilliant, and I really do thank you from the bottom of my heart. But I couldn't have done all this. I couldn't be where I am today without people's support. And I know I needed to have that moment myself, that moment of clarity to say I need to change. But without the people supporting me along the way, I wouldn't have been sat here today. I can't do this by myself. I can't do life by myself.
No, none of us can we?
No, it's hard. And I've had Andy Howard, bless him. Your dad, he's been there 100%. Even when I were back out there for that 12, 14 month, whatever it was, we're always messaging me, "You all right, mate? And we're here for you. And we want you to work for us." He's seen in me what I didn't see in myself.
That's amazing.
And it really is amazing, because And I talked about this to someone only 2 days ago.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that this guy believed in me when I didn't believe in me.
Yeah.
You know, who were still there waiting for me. And, you know, when I phoned him up and said Stephen's died, his first words were, don't be by yourself, get over and spend some time with us.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I needed, you know, and which I did. I came over and did a couple of days here just to be around people.
Yeah.
People that cared about me.
Yeah.
And from there, that's where we built the plan of going forward.
Yeah.
You know, so do you know what? Really massive thing, Stephen dying. Absolutely horrendous, massive thing happened. But out of that has come positive things too.
Yeah.
You know.
And more motivation for us to
100% more motivation
do
for
what we're doing.
Yeah, 100% more motivation, you know, because...
Stop that happening to someone else.
Yeah, definitely. I do believe that you can put the hand out and it's then waiting for that person to take it. Yeah. You know, but when that person's made a decision to take it, let's help them. Yeah. Let's give them an hand. Yeah. You know, the hard work's on them, but we can be there to support them. Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's a good feeling today.
Awesome. Well, on that note, let's end it there.
Thanks, Gav.
Thanks so much, Carl. Really enjoyed it.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you.